this could be, the second movie to The Social Network. That's what this sounds like. You have over 100 openings right now, right?
Yeah, that's correct. For the Protocol Lab side, we have over 100 roles open.
Apple is looking for engineers to build a 3D world for its yet-to-be-announced mixed reality headset.
Recruiting-ish. Web3. World-class podcast. Let's get it, let's go. The topics of discussion you cannot get from another. Opportunities in Web3, we got you covered. Metaintro, been dope. Gotta thank you for the love and support that you give it, keep it coming. We going up in jet speeds, interviews with the crews, making moves, let's see. It's a brand new world of NFTs. Join in Recruiting-ish podcast, yes please. Join in Recruiting-ish podcast, yes please.
Let's do this.
All right. Hi, everyone. GM. Today is Monday, the 21st of November, and we have a pretty special guest, Donnie from Protocol Labs from the recruitment team. And today we're going to be talking about open roles, headlines, all of the good stuff that you usually listen into with Recruiting-ish. So let's dive in.
Yeah. So first headline, Gemini is back hiring again. It looks like they're doing a Seattle hub, looking to focus on about 100 people, expanding to the Metaverse. Not really sure kind of what they're focusing on, but looks like they're looking to tap into some talent. What do you guys think about it?
Yeah, I saw their listings on LinkedIn. I want to say maybe a few weeks ago, but they've been slowly hiring over the past few months. Like they've always been within the listings on LinkedIn over they were never not there. I think maybe just with all of the layoffs, and everything happening, they're looking at it as an opportunity to staff up. So they must have had capital reserved for crypto winter.
Yeah, that's definitely a strategic move on their part. For Meta, all of the VR, AR projects and Metaverse stuff is kind of hubbed there, specifically in Redmond, Washington. So I'm not surprised they chose Seattle as a next hub.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a big hub for people in crypto. Yes, for tech though, right? There's a ton of large campuses there.
Well, Alex, did you mention that they're doing something with the Metaverse?
Yeah, so it looks like, it's talks in general that's like a plan for hiring. Some of these roles will kind of be focused on specialized areas, including probably VR, AR. But yeah, it's interesting, right? It's like they did a ton of layoffs. They kind of, restricted hiring for a little bit. Now it looks like with the layoffs and everything, they're looking to pick some people up. But yeah, curious to see. I know it's been kind of up and down in hiring and kind of budgets. So yeah, 100 people is a lot of people. I hope they can sustain them for at least a long time. So they're not doing another layoff here 6 months to a year from now if things keep going in the chilly winter.
This is just, this could be, the second movie to The Social Network. That's what this sounds like. Literally a line of the article says, crypto exchange is also making a large bet on the Metaverse competing against Meta. Either that's a total spoof on the great clickbait, or that may have been mentioned. Actually, who knows? I don't have the actual article up in front of me, but movie number 2, sequel coming soon.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna lie, that thought came to mind. I was like, Winklevoss twins. Meta has a beloved second hub in Seattle. The coincidence? I think not.
I know. Well, they'll probably get a lot of talented people. The open market right now, which I'll talk about, throughout this podcast and ongoing podcasts, with the amount of layoffs that are happening right now, the access to top tier talent. If you have the ability to attract that talent to your company, the pool is great right now. So cool. All right. Hopping into the second headline, Apple jobs listings suggest the company is building a metaverse of its own for its long rumored headset. Apple is looking for engineers to build a 3D world for its yet to be announced mixed reality headset. Job listings from Apple Technology Development Group show that the tech giant is looking for people to make content for its headset, like software producers to work on visual effects, etc. Apple is expected to release its first mixed reality headset in 2023 and could cost $3,000. That's nuts and very expensive. Would you pay $3,000 to hop into an Apple headset? No one said no.
Probably. I'm sitting with probably 5-7 grand of Apple devices around me, so I say no, but I probably have to get it, right? Yeah. Like I think it'd make the most sense, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, that price point definitely makes Meta's high-end device look like a bargain buy. But I was hesitant even to pull the trigger on that one.
How much does the Meta headset cost?
I think it's like around $1,500.
Which makes you hesitant. Yeah, when Apple comes out and says $3,000, you're like, well, it's Apple. It's going to be good quality. Yeah. Most likely be worth it. It justifies the price just because of the name.
Oh, it's consistent with their branding for sure.
Oh, totally. Well, I'm curious what the headset will be able to do. I mean, it'll most likely be compatible with everything.
Yeah, well, I worked in the AR/VR research side of the house for Meta for quite a number of years, for 3.5 years, and we did a lot of research into kind of what Apple is up to. They keep a lot of things on lock, but if you hop onto some public websites called Patently Apple, you can kind of see all the patents for Apple in this space, and they have some pretty incredible technologies coming out. One of them, I was just looking at it earlier, was they have a patent for AR/VR headset that uses dynamic focus 3D display that projects images directly onto the retina. So it's like, they definitely have been investing a lot of time and money on this.
Wow. That would be awesome. I guess next step is for the computer, or to be compatible with the computer, right?
Yeah. There's been a lot of talks in the industry of, can you pair it with a, cell phone, which is already a supercomputer in your pocket, or is there going to be an onboard chip that, kind of does that processing as well? But there's always trade-offs to that, right? There's a lot of heat dispersion, there's a lot of kind of, resource usage, and you wouldn't want that on your head, at the same time. So, it'll be interesting to see what they come up with.
Yeah, and how they're recruiting how they recruited for it. So I'm assuming it was top tier talent being able to join that team.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how they've kind of approached their recruiting practices for this segment, but the things I kind of know about Apple is that they do tend to be pretty quiet, and everything's a secret. So it's interesting that people have found those kind of breadcrumbs to their hiring along with this project.
Yeah, when I see any of the listings from Apple, far and few between, maybe over the past 6 months, and they're always very like indirect listings that like just sprinkle blockchain on, like buzzword.
Yeah.
Just to be so vague about, what they're working on, but just enough that they know if they post a job that says blockchain, they're going to get a ton of people applying. So, I've seen a few of those. And if anything, they have all been developer jobs.
Yeah. So. It's a good opportunity. I mean, to develop that with Apple, right? I mean, probably the biggest name in tech. Like it's a sell. I mean, if you're a developer that has those skill sets, it's a pretty easy jump to make to it. For sure.
Can you imagine getting a job for that? How easy that would be? After developing the headset?
Well, I'm curious too. I mean, with all these metaverses, right? I think the biggest question is like, are they going to integrate, right? Like, is Apple's metaverse, Meta's metaverse, these other kind of places, like, are we going to be able to jump from one to the other? Do I have to have 3 different Meta headsets, right? Like, I think that's kind of a technology piece that's not been played out yet. So if you got those skills, hopefully you're working on something like that.
All right, hopping into the next headline. I was really excited to talk about this because I've been seeing the headlines for so long now, and I've also seen the job listings for it. But somebody finally picked up. Rolex is looking to bring luxury watches into the metaverse. Swiss luxury watchmaker Rolex is looking to get in on the metaverse game. Recently filing a trademark related to cryptocurrencies, NFTs, and virtual goods. They have extensive plans for the metaverse, and they're looking to set up online spaces for buyers and sellers of virtual products such as watches and watch parts. And they will be going to market by product placement and online games. This is like not new news with companies coming in and doing stuff like this. I mean, I went to like the Vans virtual world on Roblox, which was super awesome. You can buy like, the skateboard and get the IRL skateboard version. But could you imagine like the percentage of people that this would actually be applicable to, but like buying avatar Rolex and then getting the real version shipped to you? Small portion of people, I think, that actually have enough Robux to be able to afford that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a pretty smart move on the part of these companies. If I think about the pandemic, some of the biggest kind of winners out of the pandemic were luxury brands. Like they continue to grow, they continue to gain market share from high end customers, and so. Yeah, to kind of now translate into the NFTs and the metaverse and everything, it seems like they're trying to kind of future-proof their business and get a piece of that early.
Children of the next generation, making sure they want to buy Rolexes too.
Gotta keep that brand.
There's definitely some 14, 15-year-olds out there with some very expensive virtual watches.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I think, the big piece here that applies is for luxury brands like the counterfeit market, right? Like, does an NFT give you the virtual good that you can kind of show off in these metaverses, but also does it validate that your watch is real, right? Like, I think there's a huge, application on that side, as well as like, if you want to sell it, like, does this become a marketplace that you can sell physical and digital goods kind of all in one place? Watches are expensive. You definitely don't want to get rugged when you're buying one. So hopefully they kind of build these things well, but I think Rolex is an established brand. So it's showing that the technology's definitely not going anywhere, I think, if anything.
Over the past week, the two companies that popped up on my timeline that were new to staffing up for Web3 related roles was Dick's Sporting Goods. They're staffing up like crazy right now. That was hilarious. But makes sense, but interesting, like as a large retailer, not like a specific like sports brand, if you will, trying to make that transition in. So maybe you'll be able to go to Dick's on Roblox one day or Decentraland. Or maybe they're building out a virtual park. Maybe they're looking at like partnering with brands like, the NFL or NHL, something like that. And then my favorite, Crocs is hiring for the metaverse.
That was a good one.
Yeah. Did you see me tweet about that?
I did see the tweet. I was like, oh my gosh, virtual Crocs, buy every pair I can find.
Oh my God. Could you imagine just going through like a Crocs virtual game and you're getting NFT? What are those things called you put in the Croc? Like little.
Oh, like whatever the little edition pieces are. Custom.
Yeah. You're through the game and you're like collecting the NFTs like Super Mario style, and like you get the real version sent to you. Genius. I love it. So that was exciting. But I was tweeting, I was like, I feel like I need to start a Twitter thread of just like weird companies that I'm seeing, but like genius and makes sense, hiring for Web3 related jobs. So TBD. All right. Well, those were our three headlines for today, but super excited to have our guest here. Our guest is from Protocol Labs, and I will have him give us a quick intro, and then we will go in and ask you all the questions that job seekers probably should have asked you during their interview. So I will let you take it away. If you can give us a high-level overview of who you are in relation to Protocol, and maybe a little bit about your background, because your background is super interesting and you have a deep career or past career, full career within hiring. Yeah.
Would it be helpful if I kind of gave a TLDR for now, or would you want me to go long form? Because once I get talking, I can get going pretty long here. So
let's do the TLDR.
Okay, sounds good. Well, at Protocol Labs, I'm talent acquisition team on a specialized team that's acting as a VC talent arm for the entire Protocol Labs network, which is an ecosystem of over 500 companies in Web3 that are being supported by Protocol Labs, obviously some other kind of backers as well. But there's another kind of unifying element of all these companies building on top of Protocol Labs primitives like IPFS, IPLD, Filecoin, multi-formats, Loop P2P, and things like that. So it's an incredible space to be in. There are so many different companies that are solving real problems with new technology. Everything from DeFi to NFTs to zero knowledge. Gaming, the Metaverse, decentralized talent networks, data integrity. The list keeps on going on and on. It's a pretty incredible ecosystem to be part of. Before that was, as I briefly mentioned, was part of the Meta Reality Labs AR/VR research hiring team. I guess in between that, I was a director of talent acquisition for a fintech startup, and then before Meta was at Google, kind of building out the Seattle Kirkland offices, just for their Gen Suite pipeline, also hiring for engineering managers.
Wow. Well, I think before we dive into the questions, which Alex, I'll let you take the first few. Something that I feel like now we need to ask just every episode. What did you want to be when you grew up, when you were 10 years old? And did you think you'd ever land in recruiting?
I felt like my career goals were kind of imposed on me by my parents, kind of your typical Asian American upbringing. I was supposed to be a doctor. And so I kind of followed that path for quite some time into my junior year in college until I realized I'm just not making the grades to make this happen. And so I kind of followed my passion into English and ended up getting a minor in medical history and ethics, one credit short from getting a chemistry minor too. But for me, I got completely lucky and got into a systems analyst role with a Fortune 500 logistics firm here in Seattle called Expeditors International. Did that for like 6.5 years. Again, kind of hit this pivotal moment in my life where I was like, hey, I want to follow my passions. And so I realized, hey, I have a bigger passion for people than I do for systems. Got into a recruiting program management role over there where I was able to create a whole bunch of strategies that they're still using today. And then got pulled over by Google, which was blowing up by 2016, and then kind of the rest is history. Just being in the space of recruiting.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's no one path into recruiting. Everybody that I've asked this question to started on one end completely different and kind of just fell into the recruiting space, like you, Alex.
Yeah. I feel like nobody grows up saying they're going to be a recruiter, but then once you get here, you stay, right? Like, again, the connections you make, and especially, at these companies, the talent you're talking to is just top notch. So it keeps you coming back around. And from like your experience, large companies in Web2, Google, Meta, how did you get to Web3? Like, what kind of steps did you take to kind of, break into an industry that can be quite nascent sometimes?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I kind of started off with like more of a personal kind of interest in the space. When I was at Google, I had a coworker who one day just said, "Hey, True, have you heard about Bitcoin and Ethereum?" And I was like, "Nah, not really." And so I tend to be a very curious person, and so like of course I get down this rabbit trail of research, and I look at Bitcoin, and I'm like, digital gold, that's not super exciting. But when I looked into Ethereum, I think that was what kind of sold me on this this blockchain technology was, there's a functional purpose to kind of building things out. There's new apps and technologies that can be built on top of it. And so just had a very surface level kind of experience there. Invested a sizable amount and made it big from there. But then fast forward, I didn't really think about it too much. Like I've always kind of, paid attention to maybe a few kind of sound bites about the industry since then. But it wasn't until I left my last startup that, I really dug into, it felt, just kind of fell upon Protocol Labs and realized what they were trying to build. Learned about, moving things from a location addressable kind of system to content addressable data on the internet. Learning about interoperability between blockchains such as ours and Ethereum and Solana. And it's like, wow, there's such a vast amount of projects and resources and technology. And so, it was just really about making connections and kind of pursuing those rabbit trails of curiosity that I just kind of personally got pulled into.
I think I was personally really excited when you said yes to being on this podcast, because over the past few months, as companies have reduced the amount of open vacancy, if there were 5 companies that I had to name within this space that actually went the complete opposite way and were like, I'm staffing up today, you would be in that top 5. Your Protocol Labs would be in that top 5. So with that being said, you have over 100 openings right now, right?
Yeah, that's correct. For the Protocol Labs side, we have over 100 roles open. If you kind of expand that to the Protocol Labs network, and I can share the link with you guys in a little bit here, but it's really a representation of over 500 companies that are hiring on the current job board. We're striving to be the world's largest Web3 job board. And currently there's over 100, startups of varying sizes. There's nearly 450 positions that are open within the network as well. And so not only are we continuing to grow into 2023 for Protocol Labs, we're also growing the entire Protocol Labs network.
That's amazing. With all of that happening in the background, with all the companies that are building with you and internally staffing up, you have something called Lab Week, right? That's like also running on the side. What is that for people that don't know, and how can you join? How can you use that as a catalyst to be noticed, to get hired if you want to work for Protocol Labs and the companies that are within the ecosystem?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up. It's still fresh in my memory because all of us were in Lisbon, just a few weeks ago, attending Lab Week 22. And for us, that's just a amalgamation of conferences and events that we've thrown for the entire community. It's open, we are open source first by nature. And so not only do we kind of host Lab Week, which is a smattering of different Web3 movements and spaces and events for people to gather and have conversations. We had an event hosted by our Metaverse company, Mona. And so they had NFT artists come up and talk about the impact they've been able to make and the empowerment that they get from building on an open metaverse. We had a fascinating conversation around the DeSci space, decentralized science. How do you gain better insights through data that is historically nearly impossible to make sense of, due to privacy rights and everything, right? And so how do you use blockchain or how do you use Web3 technologies to solve for that? We in the talent space took advantage to just have these massive networking events and other kind of conferences to really promote the growth in this space. On top of that, we do try and connect Lab Week with other kind of initiatives. Like we have a Launchpad program that's basically a 6-week onboarding program provided by Protocol Labs to help transition people from Web 2 to Web 3. Filecoin Lisbon was hosted there. There's IPFS Camp. Other partners like Ethereum, had a conference going on in Lisbon. Web Summit was right after, after a lot of our events were taken up too. So, it's this amazing, energetic, open source community and events and conferences.
So it definitely seems like crypto winter is not slowing you guys down, right? If anything, you guys are kind of doubling down on the network effect, it sounds like, in this kind of almost family of brands, which is really cool. It's a awesome approach to, again, extend the reach that you guys have.
Yeah. If you ever hear Juan speak about it, this is our third crypto winter that we've gone through as a company, and we're not afraid of it. We found that if we put our heads down, we continue to grow, we continue to invest in building, then we make it to the next cycle, right? So, yeah.
So, what's the typical interview process look like?
Yeah, so it can vary. So if you're talking about Protocol Labs, we go through a pretty intentional process of sourcing and vetting the right candidates, introducing them to hiring teams and managers. They go through like an initial interview process. They go through a follow-up interview, which tends to be a technical round, depending on the role, obviously, right? I guess the first process that comes to mind is kind of like the SWE process. If you make it past that kind of follow-up interview, then we have our mains, which is a multi-round process, anywhere from 3 to 4 rounds. And then we have a hiring thesis, which is a very it's kind of an element of Conway's Law, where a lot of the work that happens in the tech space gets kind of the vernacular comes down to our business processes as well. So we have this hiring thesis where the hiring team or the manager makes this really long write-up about the candidate and whether they're worthy of hiring, the leveling guidance, things like that, and then they come on and get an offer. If you're talking about the Protocol Labs network side of things, it's 500 companies, right? They all act as their own entities, so they have their own different interview processes, but they do tend to be kind of pretty straightforward with an initial interview, a follow-up, mains, and then offer.
Are you going to increase internally the amount of people that you're hiring? And can you tell us if you are?
I will leave that as a unknown for now, but I think we are excited about the future. I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to grow beyond 2023 in the same fashion. So,
and from like a profile of the ideal kind of culture candidate that you're looking for, are you guys open to Web 1, 2, 3, like anybody who's looking to build, or has there been kind of the right mix of experience that like really works in terms of candidates you hire?
Yeah, absolutely. All of the above. I think we, strategically speaking, we do try and find people that have some of that Web3 experience, whether it be blockchain or crypto or smart contracts, coding languages and Rust and Solidity. So we do some pretty robust talent mapping around there. But you're right, it's a small space, right? And so we do branch out into Web 1, Web 2. I had a coworker of mine post this funny meme. If you're familiar with the pigeon meme, where like the pigeon, somebody's trying to put this cracker in front of the pigeon, and the pigeon's like, get that out of my face. But then once the pigeon eats it, it's like, this thing unlocks in that pigeon's mind that it's a delicious cracker. And so the funny thing about the meme was, it was a recruiter trying to give, Web3 information to a Web2 candidate, and then the candidate's like, get that out of my face. But then once they take and learn about it, they're like, oh wow, this is amazing. And so, yeah, for us, a lot of it is, trying to tell that bigger narrative, what is beyond, digital gold and overpriced JPEGs, right? So, yeah.
You have a decentralized job fair. That's cool. What is that, and how did that just passed, right? It was on October 28th. Oh, in Lisbon. Oh, that's what you were talking about during the week. That was a part of it. How did that go? Did you have a lot of people sign up?
Yeah.
Attend?
That was during our IPFS camp that was held over the weekend. That weekend. And one of the events we held was a decentralized job fair where, some of the companies within the Protocol Labs network who have urgent hiring needs, they kind of put out tables and, just kind of these networking tables where prospective candidates could, just approach them and have conversations, learn about their background, learn about their mission, what they're trying to build. And then from there, kind of make connections. Hey, is this, a place that has something that I can offer? It was good. We really promoted that one throughout then, the first couple weeks, through Lab Week, and we had a talent day where we, handed out information for that decentralized job fair. Even at Ethereum Lisbon, we had, all these, flyers and cards that we were trying to bring people over to have those conversations. I don't know exactly the turnout or the postmortem, the findings from the postmortem from that event yet, but I know in general we had some really great conversations.
It's great if you have the opportunity as a job candidate, if you have access to those events, or the opportunity to attend those events, because it can really be beneficial for an individual to get that one-on-one face time, even if it's for 2 minutes, and the booth is crazy and everybody's trying to talk to the recruiter, but just to have that opportunity to get that quick face-to-face time to say like, hey, I'm a candidate, I'm looking for a job, I'd love to work at Protocol Labs, like these are my skill sets. Because we're in such a remote world right now, that opportunity doesn't quite exist as much as it used to.
Yeah.
And so if you have the opportunity to attend some of these like crypto conferences like Lab Week or whatever, and we're going into the conference season as a candidate and you're looking for a job, you should definitely take the opportunity to do that. I'd also be curious for anybody that was there, if there was anything that specifically stood out in the candidates that they met, like networking tricks that people did, anything that somebody said to stand out in that recruiter's mind.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think you kind of said it best earlier. It's like it's in these events that you have like these human connections, right? Often, what I hear from many people and observedly through my experience in the recruiting industry, it's very transactional, right? You just like say, here's my resume. Here's my, salary expectations, what can you do for me, type of conversations. But if you can actually sit down with somebody and talk about your motivations, what you're passionate about, the things that really, get you going and makes you wake up in the morning and you want to work on it, what are those things? And can you communicate that effectively and honestly with a recruiter? I think those are the conversations that stick in my mind is really those purely human connections.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like the conversations I remember as a recruiter are not what's your background? Tell me your story. It's like, hey, what do you think about the industry, right? Like, let's talk about where this is going, the projects, like stuff like that. I feel like the conference circuit is great for that. Like, even if, you don't have crypto experience, you can kind of show your skills and, like you said, have like a true connection. That's not just like PFP shit posting on Twitter and like LinkedIn, right? It's like you can kind of like dive into it and then, show kind of your skill set, whatever that is. That's really cool that you guys are focusing on that. Is there anything coming up that you guys are going to be at, or that you want to kind of plug to maybe get some people to?
Yeah, I can't think of anything offhand right now. I wish I had kind of looked into that a little bit before this conversation, but it's definitely something I can send to you guys later, and hopefully you can kind of link it in the description or something. But I'm pretty sure we have some really great opportunities coming up.
So we have one question from our community. Do you follow up with candidates if they don't pass the first interview to give them feedback?
I do. I know it's not something that all recruiters do, but I think again that's something that just aligns to me personally as a person, and what I want to establish as my personal brand is to be that person that advocates for people, right? Oftentimes, I've been on that side of the table before, where it's like I've gone through an interview, I thought it went well, but then without any sort of feedback, was rejected, right? And so I really empathize for folks in that situation. So in any opportunity where a candidate does directly ask me, hey, is there anything I could have done better? I'll see what I can share with them and make that known.
Cool. Well, with that being said, the last thing that I want to close out with, which is new for this episode, Alex, I didn't give you any heads up that we're going to do that this
surprise.
episode. So we've been doing giveaways associated with each podcast. And for this podcast, we want to do one fun fact about Protocol Labs. And in order to win the podcast, you have to hear it here first. So what is one fun fact, either about the hiring process for Protocol Labs or for Protocol Labs in general, that most people wouldn't know, or is surprising, or something underneath that whole category?
Okay.
I'm putting you on the spot
Sure.
too.
I'm trying to think of a fun fact. I have interesting facts that come to mind already, but a fun fact. Oh, actually, this one's really cool. One of the founders in the PLN is Jonathan Dotton, and he is also known for being a consultant for the show Silicon Valley, where they ended up having this really cool plot line talking about decentralized storage networks, and he was actually a huge part of that. And he came, after that show ended, he came back and founded a couple of companies called Starling Lab and Equity Lab.
I was just talking to somebody about this the other day because I said you were coming onto the podcast, and I was referring back to and I'm totally remembering this wrong because it's been a while since I've rewatched Silicon Valley, but there's a plot at one point where they're trying to do some sort of decentralized something across all of the phones. Do you know what I'm talking about? What were they doing within it? And it was hilarious. Maybe it was Bachman's idea or something, or do you know what I'm talking about? Or am I totally rambling?
I have to be honest, I never finished out the series. I got to season 3 or 4 and then kind of, lost track of it. But, just kind of hearing secondhand, I knew that there was a plot line about, decentralized technology, but I don't know exactly what it was that they built.
Alex, do you know what I'm talking about?
I remember parts of it. It's been a while. I mean, I think the funniest thing for me when I watched that show was I was watching that not in tech. I was in an agency. And then when I came to Coinbase, all the terminology and TLDR and dog fooding and all this stuff that was on the show, I was like, oh, this is real, right? So it's good to hear that there was somebody from the industry to make it authentic. And again, it's it makes you think, it's kind of founded some projects that were similar to what was going on. Maybe that was the ideation phase. Who knows?
No,
that is a cool fact.
Hotline within it. That's exactly like IFPS. Like it's like, you know, it's just Silicon Valley was like the comedic version of it. I rewatched Silicon Valley after starting my first startup, and everything made sense in it. Like down to the VCs that they were talking to, down to like the conference circuit, to like ideating with the team, and then the founder leaves, and then, you know, the team is upset, and, you know, everything about it was like so spot on. So yeah, I echo. Great that they had actual consultants, because you could tell that there were definitely people that were advising on the project that had gone through every single bit of building a startup from beginning to end. So great show for anybody that's listening. Definitely recommend. Hopefully they come back and do a reboot, because that would be great. Just the crypto version.
Oh God, that would be that's in the works. I'm sure there's somebody writing the crypto version of that right now. Yeah, for sure.
Somebody's definitely writing the FTX story. That's going to be the next Apple like series.
Yep. Well, and also I got to ask you, Donnie, you built a house? I saw this on your LinkedIn when you were kind of in between roles, that you built a house. Like, fun fact about you, I guess. How did you manage to do that as you were kind of in between roles?
It wasn't within that same time frame that I built a house. It's been a almost 5-year journey, actually. We bought some land here in the Seattle area in 2018. And still not fully finished. You know, I'm sitting in it right now, but you know, we have some landscaping and some external stair work that we need to do before the city lets us move in. But yeah, it started off with how would I say this? A naive idea, grand idea to build a house. I sold my wife on the idea of, hey, you know, like we were looking at houses in there and we were like, we like this, but we like this, but, and then I was like, hey, what do you think about building a house? And we'd get everything that we wanted, and, you know, finally won her over. But then, yeah, it's been a beast of a project.
4 years later.
Recruiter by day, builder by night. That is quite the trade. That's cool.
Well, Donnie, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and talk to us about Protocol Labs, about your background, you know, talk through the headlines with us. If somebody wants to apply to a job at Protocol Labs, where do they go?
Yeah, you can go to jobs.protocol.ai /jobs. You'll see all the positions are open for Protocol Labs, as well as the entire Protocol Labs network.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in and for listening to episode 3 of Recruiting Ish. I'm Lacey K. And
I'm Alex C.
And we'll chat next week for our next guest.
See you then.